Emma and Daniel's story began long before either of them could have imagined their lives entwined in such a profound way. They grew up in a small coastal town where everyone knew each other, and life moved at a slower pace. The ocean was their constant companion, its waves crashing against the shore, its salty breeze weaving through their days. It was here, amidst this serene backdrop, that their friendship first took root. As children, Emma and Daniel were inseparable. She was the dreamer, always sketching pictures of faraway places or writing stories about adventures she hoped to one day have. He was the doer, practical and grounded, often building sandcastles with her or helping fix things around her house when her family struggled financially. Their differences complemented each other perfectly. Emma brought out Daniel's imaginative side while he gave her stability and encouragement. Together they balanced each other in ways neither fully understood until much later. But life wasn't without its challenges. Emma's family faced tough times. Her father worked long hours as a fisherman, but it was never enough to make ends meet. Her mother juggled multiple jobs just to keep food on the table. Despite these hardships, Emma remained optimistic, finding solace in Daniel's unwavering presence. He would often bring over groceries his parents didn't need or help her with, school projects late into the night. To Emma, Daniel wasn't just a friend. He was her anchor during turbulent times. Daniel, too, had his own struggles. His parents had high expectations for him. They wanted him to pursue a career in law or medicine, something prestigious and lucrative. But Daniel's heart wasn't in those fields. He loved working with his hands, fixing things and creating something tangible. This clash of aspirations created tension at home, leaving him feeling torn between pleasing his parents and staying true to himself. Yet no matter how stressful things got, spending time with Emma reminded him of what truly mattered: love, loyalty, and living authentically. Their bond deepened as they entered adulthood. While many childhood friendships fade over time, theirs only grew stronger. They supported each other through breakups, job losses, and personal doubts. When Emma dreamed of moving to the city to study art, Daniel encouraged her every step of the way, even though it meant they'd be apart for the first time in years. And when Daniel decided to enroll in a trade school to become a carpenter, Emma cheered him on, reminding him that success isn't measured by societal standards, but by happiness and fulfillment. One summer evening, after years of being apart due to their respective pursuits, they found themselves back in their hometown. Walking along the same beach where they spent countless childhood afternoons, they realized how much they still meant to each other. That night, under a sky full of stars, Daniel confessed his feelings. "I don't want to imagine my life without you," he said softly. Emma smiled, her heart swelling with emotion. "You've always been my person," she replied. From that moment on, they became more than friends. They became partners. Over the next few years, they built a life together, weathering new storms and celebrating small victories. When Daniel finally knelt down on one knee during a sunset stroll on the beach, Emma didn't hesitate to say yes. As they planned their wedding, neither of them could have guessed how much this day would mean, not just for them but for everyone whose lives they touched. Little did Emma know Daniel had one last surprise up his sleeve, a gesture so heartfelt it would leave her speechless. The morning of the wedding dawned bright and clear, with the sun casting a golden glow over the small coastal town. Emma woke, up to the sound of seagulls calling outside her window, a familiar melody that brought both excitement and nerves bubbling to the surface. Today was the day she had dreamed of for as long as she could remember. The day she would finally marry Daniel, the man who had been her rock through every twist and turn of life. Yet despite all the planning and anticipation, there was an underlying sense of mystery in the air, though Emma couldn't quite put her finger on why. Her room was a flurry of activity as her bridesmaids bustled around, helping her get ready. The dress she had chosen hung delicately on the door, a flowing gown with intricate lace detailing that seemed to shimmer whenever light hit it. As Emma slipped into it, she caught a glimpse of herself in the mirror and felt a wave of emotion wash over her. This wasn't just any dress, it symbolized years of love, growth, and resilience. Her best friend Sarah stood behind her, adjusting the veil and smiling warmly. "You look perfect," Sarah said softly. "Daniel's going to lose his breath when he sees you." Meanwhile, at the chapel, Daniel paced nervously near the altar. His usually calm demeanor was replaced with restless energy. He tugged at his collar, adjusted his tie, and glanced repeatedly toward the back of the church. To anyone watching, it might have seemed like typical pre-wedding jitters, but those closest to him knew better. Something or someone was missing, and Daniel couldn't shake the feeling that everything hinged on this one detail falling into place. The chapel itself was breathtaking. Decorated with white roses and green garlands, it exuded elegance and warmth. Sunlight streamed through the stained glass windows, casting colorful patterns on the wooden pews. Friends and family filled the seats, their faces glowing with excitement. Laughter and murmurs of conversation floated through the air, mingling with the soft strains of music played by a string quartet. It was everything Emma and Daniel had envisioned: intimate, beautiful, and full of love. As the clock ticked closer to the ceremony's start time, Daniel's anxiety grew. He had spent months orchestrating a secret plan, one he hoped would make this day unforgettable. Not just for him and Emma, but for everyone involved. He checked his phone again, silently praying for confirmation that his efforts hadn't been in vain. When a text finally buzzed through, relief washed over him. It was happening. Everything was falling into place. Back at the bridal suite, Emma's father knocked gently on the door before stepping inside. Dressed in his finest suit, he looked both proud and emotional. "It's time," he said, his voice thick with sentiment. Emma took a deep breath, clutching her bouquet tightly as tears welled up in her eyes. She hugged her mom, who whispered words of encouragement, and then linked arms with her dad. Stepping outside, she saw the path leading to the chapel adorned, with flower petals and ribbons swaying gently in the breeze. Her heart raced with anticipation. When the doors of the chapel opened and the processional music began, all eyes turned to Emma. She walked slowly down the aisle, her gaze fixed on Daniel standing at the altar. He looked handsome in his tailored suit, his blue eyes shining with admiration. For a moment, everything else faded away. The guests, the decorations, even her own nervousness. All that mattered was the connection between them, the unspoken promise they were about to make to each other. But as Emma approached the altar, she noticed something unusual. Daniel's expression shifted slightly. There was a flicker of anticipation in his eyes mixed with a hint of apprehension. Before she could dwell on it, he leaned in and whispered, "Emma, I need you to trust me." Confused but willing to follow his lead, she nodded. What happened next would leave her and everyone else in the room utterly speechless. The moment Emma reached the altar, time seemed to slow down. Daniel took her hands in his touch warm and reassuring, yet there was an intensity in his gaze that made her heart skip a beat. The minister began speaking, his voice calm and steady as he welcomed everyone to witness the union of two souls deeply in love. The chapel fell silent, save for the occasional rustle of fabric or the soft creak of wooden pews. Every word felt sacred, every pause heavy with emotion. Emma focused on Daniel's face, memorizing every detail, the way his dark hair curled, slightly at the edges, the faint dimple that appeared when he smiled nervously, and the sincerity in his eyes as he repeated the vows they had practiced together. "I promise to stand by you through every storm," he said, his voice trembling just enough to reveal how much this moment meant to them both. Emma's chest tightened with emotion as she echoed his words, her own voice barely above a whisper. But then something unexpected happened. Just as the minister prompted Daniel to say, "I do," he hesitated. His grip on Emma's hands tightened ever so slightly, and she tilted her head, confused. She opened her mouth to ask if everything was okay, but before she could speak, Daniel leaned closer and whispered, "Trust me." There was urgency in his tone, but also a quiet confidence that stopped her from questioning further. Taking a deep breath, Daniel straightened up and turned to face the congregation. Then, in a clear, steady voice, he said, "Emma, I need you to turn around." The room collectively held its breath. Guests exchanged puzzled glances, unsure of what was happening. Emma froze, her mind racing with questions. Why would he ask her to turn around now? Was something wrong? Had someone arrived late? Her curiosity quickly gave way to trust. After all, this was Daniel, the man who had stood by her through thick and thin. If he was asking her to do this, there had to be a reason. With hesitant steps, Emma turned around, her veil swishing softly behind her. At first, she saw nothing unusual, just rows of familiar faces smiling back at her. But then, her eyes landed on a figure standing near the entrance of the chapel. For a split second, her brain refused to process what she was seeing. It couldn't be. Could it? Standing there, dressed in a sharp suit and looking utterly out of place yet strangely fitting, was Liam, her older brother. Her breath hitched in her throat as tears instantly sprang to her eyes. Liam hadn't been part of her life for years, not since their bitter falling out over their late mother's inheritance. Their relationship had ended in anger and hurtful words, leaving a void in Emma's heart that she thought would never heal. And yet here he was now, tears streaming down his own face as he stared at her with a mixture of regret and hope. For a moment, Emma forgot where she was. The chapel, the guests, even Daniel, all faded into the background. The only thing that mattered was the man standing before her, the brother she had once shared secrets, laughter, and dreams with. Her knees wobbled beneath her, threatening to give way under the weight of emotions crashing over her. She clutched her bouquet tightly, her knuckles turning white as reality sank in. Liam took a tentative step forward, his lips moving silently, as if trying to form words but failing. Finally, he managed to mouth 3 simple words. "I'm so sorry." Emma's vision blurred with tears as she let go of her bouquet and rushed toward him. The sound of her footsteps echoed through the silent chapel, breaking the spell that had fallen over the room. When she reached Liam, she threw her arms around him, sobbing uncontrollably into his shoulder. He hugged her back just as fiercely, his own tears falling freely. Neither of them spoke. They didn't need to. In that embrace, years of pain and estrangement melted away, replaced by a flood of forgiveness and love. Behind them, the congregation erupted into murmurs of surprise and awe. Some wiped away tears while others exchanged knowing smiles. Even the minister looked momentarily stunned, though he quickly regained his composure and offered a quiet blessing for the siblings' reunion. Daniel watched the scene unfold with a mixture of pride and relief. He had taken a risk, reaching out to Liam months ago in secret, hoping to mend the broken bond between the siblings. Seeing Emma and Liam together now, hugging as though no time had passed, confirmed that it had all been worth it. This wasn't just about making Emma happy. It was about giving her the gift of closure, of family, on the most important day of her life. As Emma pulled away from Liam, still holding on to his arms as if afraid he might disappear again, she turned to look at Daniel. Through her tears, she mouthed a silent, "Thank you," her heart overflowing with gratitude. Daniel simply nodded, his eyes shining with unshed tears. In that moment, surrounded by love, forgiveness, and the promise of new beginnings, Emma realized that this wedding day wasn't just about her and Daniel. It was about healing old wounds and creating a future built on unity and understanding. After the initial shock of seeing Liam wore off, Emma's world began to settle into a new rhythm. The raw emotions that had overwhelmed her moments earlier started to give way to clarity and curiosity. As she clung to her brother, still unable to fully believe he was standing there, questions bubbled up in her mind. Why had he come back now? How had Daniel managed to find him? And most importantly, what did this mean for their fractured relationship? Liam seemed to sense her unspoken thoughts. Gently pulling away from their embrace, he held her at arm's length, his hands trembling slightly as they rested on her shoulders. His eyes searched hers, filled with vulnerability and remorse. "I know I don't deserve to be here," he began, his voice thick with emotion. "But when Daniel reached out to me, I realized I couldn't stay away anymore." Emma blinked in surprise. "Daniel reached out to you?" she asked softly, glancing over her shoulder at her soon-to-be husband. Daniel stood near the altar, watching quietly but offering an encouraging nod. It was then that Emma understood the depth of his efforts, the countless hours he must have spent tracking Liam down, convincing him to return and keeping it all a secret until this very moment. Her heart swelled with gratitude, not just for bringing Liam here, but for understanding how much family meant to her. Liam continued, his words spilling out in a rush as if he feared losing his courage. "I've thought about you every single day since we stopped talking," he admitted. "Leaving wasn't easy, Em. I was angry at myself, at Mom's passing, at everything. But running away didn't fix anything. If anything, it made me realize how much I lost by pushing you out of my life." Emma listened intently, her tears slowing as she absorbed his words. She remembered those painful days after their argument, the silence between them stretching longer than either had intended. At first, she had hoped Liam would reach out, but as weeks turned into months and eventually years, she convinced herself he no longer cared. Now, hearing him speak so openly, she saw the truth. He had been hurting too. "I wanted to come back sooner," Liam confessed, his voice breaking. "But I didn't know how. I thought you hated me. And honestly, I hated myself for letting things get so bad between us." He paused, swallowing hard before continuing. "When Daniel called me, he told me this was my chance, to make things right, to be part of your life again. I couldn't say no. Not today. Not on your wedding day." The sincerity in his voice struck a chord deep within Emma. For so long she had carried the weight of their estrangement alone, blaming herself for not trying harder to mend things. But now, hearing Liam take responsibility for his actions eased some of that burden. She realized forgiveness wasn't just about letting go of anger. It was also about giving someone the opportunity to change. Taking a deep breath, Emma reached out and placed a hand on Liam's cheek. "I missed you," she said simply, her voice barely above a whisper. "More than you'll ever know." Liam's eyes filled with fresh tears as he nodded. "I missed you too, sis," he replied hoarsely, "and I swear, I'll never let anything or anyone come between us again." Their reconciliation wasn't perfect. Wounds like theirs don't heal overnight. But in that moment, surrounded by loved ones and bathed in the soft glow of the chapel, they took the first step toward rebuilding what had been broken. Emma felt a sense of peace wash over her, a peace she hadn't known in years. As Liam joined the congregation, taking a seat beside their father, Emma returned to the altar, her steps lighter than before. Daniel met her halfway, wrapping an arm around her waist as if to steady her. "Are you okay?" he whispered, concern etched across his face. Emma nodded, smiling through her tears. "Better than okay," she murmured. "Thank you for giving me this gift. I don't think I'll ever be able to repay you." Daniel smiled back, his expression softening. "You already have," he said simply, "by trusting me enough to let me try." With renewed strength, Emma turned back to face the minister, ready to continue the ceremony. But now, something had shifted, not just in her heart, but in the entire atmosphere of the room. What had started as a celebration of love between two people had become something even greater, a testament to the power of forgiveness, unity, and second chances. As the ceremony resumed, the air in the chapel felt different, lighter, warmer, charged with a sense of renewal. Emma and Daniel stood together at the altar, their hands clasped tightly as if drawing strength from each other. The minister continued, with the vows, but it was clear that this day had taken on a deeper meaning. It wasn't just about two people promising to love and cherish one another. It was also about healing old wounds and bridging gaps that had once seemed impossible to close. After the rings were exchanged and the final blessing was given, the newlyweds made their way down the aisle, greeted by cheers and applause from their guests. But instead of heading straight to the reception area, Emma pulled Daniel aside. "I need to talk to Liam," she said, her voice firm yet gentle. Daniel nodded without hesitation, understanding that this conversation was long, overdue, and necessary. Emma found Liam standing near the entrance of the chapel, looking slightly out of place among the joyful chaos. He shifted uncomfortably, his suit jacket draped over one arm as if unsure whether he truly belonged there. When he saw Emma approaching, his expression softened, though traces of nervousness remained. "Hey," he said cautiously, managing a small smile. "You look amazing." Emma laughed softly, brushing away a stray tear. "Thanks. You clean up pretty well yourself." For a moment they simply stood there, studying each other like strangers reacquainting after years apart. Then Emma gestured toward a quiet corner of the courtyard, where they could speak privately. Liam followed silently, his footsteps hesitant but resolute. Once they were alone, surrounded by the soft rustling of leaves and the distant sound of waves crashing against the shore, Emma turned to face him. "Tell me everything," she said, her tone both curious and compassionate. "Why did you leave? Why didn't you come back sooner?" Liam sighed deeply, running a hand through his hair. "It's complicated," he admitted. "After Mom passed, I felt lost, like I didn't know who I was anymore. And then the fight we had over her will, it felt like the last straw. I convinced myself that leaving was the only way to deal with everything. I thought if I put enough distance between us, I'd stop feeling so guilty, so angry." Emma listened intently, her heart aching for the pain he had carried all these years. She remembered how hard those days had been for both of them. The grief, the confusion, the weight of decisions neither of them had been prepared to make. "I blamed myself too, you know," she confessed, "for not being able to fix things, for letting our argument get so out of hand." Liam shook his head vehemently. "No, Em, that wasn't your fault. None of it was. I should have been stronger. For you, for Mom, for everyone, but I wasn't. And running away didn't help. If anything, it made me realize how much I missed having you in my life." His words hung in the air, heavy with emotion. Emma took a step closer, placing a hand on his arm. "We both made mistakes," she said softly. "But what matters now is moving forward. Together." Liam nodded, tears brimming in his eyes. "I want that more than anything," he replied. "I don't expect things to go back to how they were overnight, but I promise I'll do whatever it takes to earn your trust again." Emma smiled, her heart swelling with hope. "You already have," she said simply. "Just being here today means more to me than you'll ever know." They hugged once more, this time without the desperation of earlier, but with a quiet assurance that they were on the path to healing. As they walked back toward the reception area side by side, Emma felt a profound sense of closure. The rift that had haunted her for years no longer felt insurmountable. With Liam by her side again, and Daniel's unwavering support, she knew she could face whatever challenges lay ahead. When they rejoined the celebration, the atmosphere was electric. Guests danced under strings of fairy lights, laughter echoed through the warm evening air, and the scent of fresh seafood wafted from the buffet tables. Emma introduced Liam to Daniel's family, watching as they welcomed him warmly into their fold. Even her father, usually stoic and reserved, couldn't hide his joy as he embraced Liam tightly, tears shining in his eyes. As the night unfolded, Emma realized something profound. Forgiveness wasn't just about letting go of the past, it was about creating space for new beginnings. And on this day, surrounded by love and reconciliation, she felt truly whole for the first time in years. As the evening progressed, the reception buzzed with energy and laughter. The dance floor was alive with movement, the clinking of glasses, punctuated conversations, and the soft glow of fairy lights created an enchanting atmosphere. Yet amidst all the celebration, there was a palpable sense that this night was about more than just the union of Emma and Daniel. It was a testament to the power of love, forgiveness, and family. When it came time for speeches, the room quieted down, anticipation hanging in the air. Friends shared heartfelt stories of how Emma and Daniel had inspired those around them with their unwavering commitment to each other. Laughter erupted when one of Daniel's childhood friends recounted a hilarious tale of their misadventures, as teenagers, while Emma's best friend spoke movingly about her strength and kindness through life's challenges. Each story added another layer to the tapestry of their lives, painting a picture of two people who were not only deeply in love, but also anchors for everyone fortunate enough to know them. But it was Daniel's speech that truly captured the essence of the day. Standing at the head table, he adjusted the microphone and smiled warmly at the sea of faces before him. "Thank you all for being here today," he began, his voice steady yet filled with emotion. "This is such a special moment for Emma and me, but I have to admit, there's something even more meaningful happening here tonight." He paused, glancing at Emma, then at Liam, who sat beside their father a few tables away. "When Emma and I started planning our wedding, I knew I wanted this day to be perfect for her, and I realized there was one thing missing, one person who needed to be here." His gaze shifted to Liam, who looked visibly moved. "Liam, your sister loves you more than words can express. She's carried the weight of your absence every single day since you left, so I decided to reach out to you because I believed you deserved a second chance, and so did she." The room fell silent, every guest leaning in to hear his next words. "Family isn't just blood," Daniel continued. "It's the people who stand by you no matter what. It's the ones who remind you that love is worth fighting for. Today we've seen proof of that. We've seen forgiveness, reconciliation, and hope. That's what makes this day unforgettable. Not just for Emma and me, but for everyone here." By the time Daniel finished speaking, there wasn't a dry eye in the room. Emma rose from her seat, tears streaming down her face as she embraced him tightly. "You have no idea how much this means to me," she whispered, her voice trembling. Daniel simply held her close, knowing that actions often speak louder than words. Meanwhile, Liam stood up and raised his glass in a toast. "To my little sister," he said, his voice thick with emotion, "and to Daniel, for reminding me what really matters, to family." The crowd echoed his sentiment, glasses clinking together in unison as cheers erupted once again. The rest of the evening passed in a blur of joy and connection. Emma danced with Liam for the first time in years, their laughter mingling with happy tears as they spun across the floor. Even their father joined in, pulling Liam into a spirited jig that had everyone roaring with laughter. Daniel watched it all unfold with a quiet satisfaction, knowing he had played a part in bringing this fractured family back together. At one point, Emma slipped away to take a moment for herself. Stepping outside onto the patio overlooking the ocean, she breathed in the salty breeze, feeling overwhelmed by the events of the day. Daniel followed her, wrapping his arms around her waist from behind. "Are you okay?" he asked softly. Emma nodded, leaning into him. "More than okay," she replied. "Today has been magical. You gave me everything I didn't even know I needed. Thank you for believing in us, in all of us." Daniel kissed the top of her head, holding her close as the waves crashed below. "That's what love does," he murmured. "It brings people together. It heals wounds. It reminds us that nothing is ever truly broken if we're willing to try." As they stood there together, bathed in moonlight, Emma felt a profound sense of gratitude, not just for Daniel, but for the gift of forgiveness and the promise of new beginnings. This wasn't just their wedding day. It was the start of something far greater, a future built on unity, understanding, and unconditional love. As the night deepened, the celebration reached its peak. The music grew livelier, the laughter louder, and the energy in the air became infectious. Emma found herself swept up in a whirlwind of joy, dancing with friends and family under the sparkling fairy lights. Each moment felt like a gift, a reminder of how far she had come and how much love surrounded her. One of the highlights of the evening came when Emma finally danced with Liam. It was their first real dance together in years, and though they started off awkwardly, stepping on each other's toes and laughing self-consciously, it didn't take long for them to fall into rhythm. As they twirled across the floor, Emma couldn't help but notice how different this felt from the dances of her childhood. Back then, Liam had been her protector, always leading the way. Now, they moved as equals, two people who had weathered stormed separately but were ready to face the future side by side. "You're not half bad at this," Liam teased, spinning her gently before pulling her back in. "Speak for yourself," Emma shot back, grinning. "You almost knocked over Aunt Susan's table." They both burst into laughter, the kind that comes from pure, unfiltered happiness. For the first time in years, Emma felt like she had her brother back, not just in body, but in spirit. She glanced over at Daniel, who stood nearby, watching them with a proud smile. He gave her a subtle thumbs up, silently acknowledging the significance of this moment. Emma's heart swelled with gratitude. This wasn't just about her and Daniel anymore. It was about bringing everyone together. The festivities took another emotional turn when Emma's father surprised everyone with an impromptu speech. Clutching his glass tightly, he stepped up to the microphone, clearing his throat nervously. "I'm not much of a speaker," he admitted, earning chuckles from the crowd, "but I have to say something tonight." He turned to look at Emma and Liam, his eyes glistening with tears. "When your mother passed, I thought we'd lost more than just her. I thought we'd lost each other too. Seeing you two together, again." His voice cracked and he paused to compose himself. "It reminds me that family is worth fighting for. Love doesn't give up, even when we do." The room erupted into applause, many guests wiping away tears as they nodded in agreement. Emma hugged her father tightly after his speech, feeling a renewed sense of connection to him. Even Liam joined in, wrapping his arms around them both in a rare display of vulnerability. It was a moment that brought the entire room to its feet, cheering and clapping in solidarity. As the hours passed, the party shifted from heartfelt to downright festive. Friends dragged Emma and Daniel onto the dance floor for group numbers, while others challenged Liam to join in silly games. At one point, Emma's best friend Sarah convinced her to perform a karaoke duet of their favorite childhood song, "Much," to the delight and amusement of the guests. The sound of their off-key singing only added to the charm of the evening. Even the quieter moments carried weight. During a brief lull in the music, Emma found herself sitting beside Daniel near the edge of the patio, their feet dangling above the sand. They watched as the waves rolled in, their reflections shimmering in the moonlight. "Do you think days like this happen often?" Emma asked softly, leaning her head on his shoulder. Daniel thought for a moment before answering. "Not often enough. But maybe that's why they're so special. Days like today remind us what really matters." Emma nodded, her gaze drifting toward Liam, who was now seated with their father, sharing stories and laughter. She realized that Daniel was right. This day wasn't just about her wedding. It was about mending broken bonds, celebrating love in all its forms, and creating memories that would last a lifetime. By the time the final song played, the guests were exhausted but content. Emma and Daniel shared one last dance, surrounded by everyone they loved. As the music faded and the lights dimmed, Emma whispered into Daniel's ear, "This has been the most perfect day." Daniel kissed her forehead, smiling. "And it's only the beginning." With those words lingering in the cool night air, the newlyweds walked hand in hand toward their future, a future filled with promise, unity, and endless possibilities. As the night drew to a close, the festivities began to wind down. But the warmth of the day lingered in everyone's hearts. The fairy lights still twinkled softly above, casting a gentle glow over the now quieter gathering. Guests gathered their things, hugged one another goodbye, and offered final congratulations to Emma and Daniel before heading home. Yet, amid the slow departure, Emma and Daniel stole a moment for themselves, a quiet pause amidst the whirlwind of emotions they had experienced throughout the day. Hand in hand, they walked down to the beach, leaving behind the laughter and chatter of the reception. The ocean stretched endlessly before them, its rhythmic waves lapping at the shore as if welcoming them into this new chapter of their lives. The cool breeze brushed against their faces, carrying with it the faint scent of salt water and memories of summers past. It was here on this very beach that their journey together had begun so many years ago, and now, standing under the same starlit sky, they felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude for where they had been, for what they had overcome, and for the future that lay ahead. Emma kicked off her shoes, letting the soft sand slip between her toes as she turned to face Daniel. "Do you remember the first time we came here?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Daniel smiled, his eyes reflecting the shimmering moonlight. "How could I forget? You were trying to teach me how to skip stones, and I kept throwing them straight into the water." Emma laughed, the sound light and carefree. "You were terrible at it," she teased. "But you didn't give up. That's always been your way. You never stop until you get it right." Daniel reached out, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "I guess that's why today feels so complete. All those years of trying to make things better. For us, for you and Liam. It wasn't easy, but seeing everything come together tonight made it all worth it." Emma nodded, tears welling up in her eyes once more. She thought back to the morning, when she had woken up nervous and excited, unsure of what the day would bring. Now, as she stood beside Daniel, she realized that this wedding wasn't just about them. It was about healing wounds, rebuilding bridges, and creating something stronger than either of them could have imagined alone. They continued walking along the shoreline, the sound of the waves providing a soothing backdrop to their conversation. Emma glanced back toward the chapel, now dimly lit and peaceful, where moments earlier she had danced with Liam, shared laughter with her father, and felt truly whole for the first time in years. "I can't believe you did all of this," she said, turning to Daniel. "Bringing Liam back, it changed everything for me, for my family." Daniel shook his head, pulling her closer. "It wasn't just me. You've always believed in second chances, Em. Even when things seemed impossible, you held on to hope. All I did was give you the opportunity to see that hope realized." Emma rested her head on his shoulder, feeling the steady beat of his heart beneath her cheek. "Still," she murmured, "you gave me something I'll treasure forever. A family united. A love unbroken." The two stood there for a while longer, watching as the horizon slowly began to lighten with the promise of dawn. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new adventures, and perhaps even new struggles. But none of that mattered now. In this moment, surrounded by the beauty of the sea and the strength of their bond, they felt invincible. Finally, Daniel broke the silence. "Ready to start forever?" he asked, his tone playful yet sincere. Emma looked up at him, her eyes shining with love and determination. "Forever starts now," she replied, sealing the promise with a kiss. As they walked away from the beach, arms wrapped tightly around each other, the first rays of sunlight peeked over the horizon, painting the sky in hues of gold and pink. It was a fitting end to a day full of love, forgiveness, and unity, and a beautiful beginning to the rest of their lives together. For Emma and Daniel, this wasn't just the conclusion of their wedding day. It was the start of a lifetime built on trust, sacrifice, and unwavering devotion. And as they stepped forward into the unknown, they knew one thing for certain. No matter what lay ahead, they would face it together.